Thank you for staying with us. Now, according to the United Nations, many developing countries, which are least to blame for climate change, are among the most exposed to its impacts. These include severe droughts, floods and cyclones, which have worsened food insecurity on the continent. Now, with the UN climate negotiations set to begin their latest round in Egypt on Sunday, what will Africa's agenda be at the talks? Well, helping me to unpack just that is Bethany Tietjen, research fellow at Tufts University, police officer at One Campaign, Olawunmi, Ola-Busari, Catherine Langat, who is a technical manager at Africa's Seed Trade Association, and Dr. Carolina Pan, who is the head of research at Power for All. Ladies, a very good evening. Appreciate your time this evening. Olawunmi, allow me to start with you. Now, One Campaign is pushing for the end to extreme poverty and preventable diseases by 2030. How do you balance that against the moving goalposts that is global warming?
I think we do so by recognizing the interdependency between the two. Human beings are dependent on their environment, and climate change is a threat multiplier, as you alluded to. So it's making things like food insecurity worse. It's biting into people's income if they're farmers. And so we really see it as interconnected.
Dr. Pan, now you represent an organization called Power for All, and decentralized renewable energy solutions is something that is high on the agenda. But one of the challenges that the West certainly is facing is that they've started engaging again in fossil fuels because of what's happening with that Ukraine-Russia conflict. How does this play into your desires or the things that you're pushing for, certainly around decentralized and renewable energy?
Yeah, sure. So, and thank you for having me. We're a global campaign that seeks to, accelerate the end of energy poverty through the use of decentralized renewable energy. And, with 600 million people now in Africa in the dark, I think it's about time to look again at the renewable sector, but particularly the decentralized renewable energy sector as a solution in the region. So I think that looking into COP27, we should be thinking about getting global support for it, because decentralized renewable energy is not only obviously environmentally sustainable, but it's also, as a lot of research, including our research, shows, the fastest and cheapest way to end energy poverty.
Now, Bethany, you did a very interesting paper, and one of the things you talk about is Pakistan and the impact of global warming on that country. In fact, you've suggested that global warming has seen an increase in 50% of rainfall that Pakistan is receiving. Now, does the West owe Africa, does the West owe developing nations because of what it's caused in global warming?
Thank you for your question. So I think that this is a really important topic that we'll be seeing a lot of at this upcoming climate conference starting next week in Egypt. And this idea of owing a debt to these countries that have not contributed the most to global warming, it's the term loss and damage, and this will definitely be on the agenda at COP27. And I think, in my opinion, and a lot of researchers are saying that there is a debt that is owed, and loss and damage is one mechanism through which large emitting countries will be able to provide compensation for countries that are experiencing climate impacts but who have not contributed to global greenhouse gas emissions in the same way as larger emitters.
Now, Catherine, you're obviously involved in an integral part of survival of most people, and that is seed. And the question that arises certainly is around Kenya, for instance, one country that has allowed the reintroduction of genetically modified seed in its country. Can genetically modified seed be used to counter some of the impact that we are facing of global warming, particularly in drought-stricken countries?
Thank you for having me. And yeah, indeed, this is an interesting question. I would really like more time to unpack it, but concisely to respond to you, the plant breeders have over the years tried to make sure that they are able to meet the challenges, climate challenges, with the producing food, with a growing population, and it has been a a desire or a work that is being done by the plant breeders to ensure that we are able to feed the growing population, especially in the continent, in the wake of climate change. Now, precisely to your question, we as plant breeders have been doing quite a lot with conventional breeding, but with all these challenges that are coming up, for sure we cannot shy away or avoid innovation and precisely technology. So when we look at the GM technology, the African seed industry is of the opinion that this is may not necessarily be the silver bullet, but it surely is part of the solution. So considering or looking at the myriad challenges that we have, climate change, growing population in the continent, then certainly GM is part of that solution. It is part of the toolbox that the plant breeders require to make sure that they are able to still achieve what needs to be achieved, considering also that the land is not growing, and so we have limited resources, but we need to still produce more. So really, GM is part of this solution. Thank you.
Now, Olawunmi, to come back to you, and certainly your fight against extreme poverty and preventable diseases by 2030, what is your agenda come COP27? What is Africa's agenda come COP27, particularly when you take a look at some of your focus areas?
Yes, so I think from our standpoint, we look at the fact that even though the world's poorest countries have contributed the least to the climate crisis by way of greenhouse gas emissions, they are the ones that are actually seeing the worst impacts. And within countries, it is marginalized people, it is low-income people who are seeing the worst effects of climate change, who have the least resources to adapt to climate change and its impacts. And so for us, what we are really going into COP advocating for is for scaled up climate finance for developing countries. They are being denied the access to the vital investment that they need to adapt to and mitigate climate change's threats. So we want to see at the very least high income countries, deliver on their 13-year promise of $100 billion a year in climate finance. But actually we want to see more than that. We would like for a more ambitious goal for climate finance moving forward. We would like for more of that climate finance to go towards adaptation, which is more of a priority immediate in the short term for lower income countries. And we would like more of that climate finance to not be debt. Countries already have so much debt that they're taking on. And so as much of that can be concessional loans or grants, that is what we want to see moving forward. Thank you.
Now, Bethany, my question to you is, does COP27 afford Africa a soapbox moment, if you will, to stand on the pulpit and call out some of these European countries or Western countries that are responsible for the devastation of climate change?
I think so. I think that is something that the Egypt COP presidency is really trying to do. This is being referred to as Africa's COP. And hopefully in the coming weeks we'll see a lot of focus on looking at the ways that specifically African countries have contributed very little to climate change, and yet they're experiencing some of the worst impacts, and also how they receive comparably little climate finance compared to other regions in the world. Some recent research that my organization did found a gap of hundreds of billions of dollars in what African countries have reported as needed for adaptation finance compared to what is actually being delivered. And so that's quite a significant gap that needs to be filled. And hopefully COP27 will be a space for countries to discuss that and, as Olawunmi said, to up those commitments and hopefully lead to more tangible financial commitments going forward.
Now, Dr. Pan, you're looking at accelerating the deployment of renewable energy mini-grids across the continent. There's a huge amount of work that you've already done. Are you moving fast enough? Is there sufficient support on the continent to roll this out as quickly as possible? Because obviously we know that it reduces the release of greenhouse gases.
there is not enough support, and we do hope that this changes after COP27. That the leaders of the world understand the importance, especially for the region, of deploying decentralized renewable energy technologies. That is the only way that these countries can achieve universal electrification and also clean energy, right? So it's clean and affordable energy. We've also shown recently in our research, we've done a job census, and we show that the DRE sector, besides what I said before, that it's, the fastest and cheapest way to universal electrification, it's also a large, stable, and resilient employer. So we've seen that it has, over the pandemic, even though obviously jobs have reduced in every sector of the economy, the job loss has been much milder in the DRE sector than it has in the overall economy, and the rebound is much faster. So it's a good sector. It's a sector to pay attention to. So beyond electrification itself, it has a lot of other benefits.
Catherine, very quickly, my final question to you is research and development is obviously a big part of what you do. Is enough going into research and development to come up with seed varieties, if you will, that are resistant to some of the calamities that we're facing on the continent?
Yeah, indeed. The process of bringing seed or precisely a variety into the final product or to the farmers is rigorous and complex. And lasting approximately 16 years, costing more than $100 million. Basically, on average, the research and development takes between 2 to 20% of a seed company's turnover, and it involves quite a lot of comprehensive scientific testing and regulatory reviews. Now, to your question, is enough being done? Without doubt, the seed companies, plant breeders are working tirelessly to, as I've highlighted, not only pump in billions of dollars in research and development, but also take into account the several number of years that it is required to have a variety and a good variety in that matter to be released to the nation. Companies conduct years of field cases of product development from really early discovery to commercialization, and this is just to make sure or to be certain that the new varieties or new traits are able to not only be fit for purpose but can also encompass the current climate change that is witnessed, be able to yield more, for example, be drought tolerant. So there's quite a lot that is being done, and seed companies are committed to keep doing some more.
Ladies, certainly appreciate your time on Africa Today this evening. That was Bethany Tietjen, a research fellow at Tufts University, policy officer at One Campaign, Olawunmi, Ola-Busari, Catherine Langat, who's a technical manager at Africa Seed Trade Association, and Dr. Carolina Pan, who's the head of research at Power for All.